At this point, again, somehow we need to demonstrate what's going on. Well, first of all, we have 4 variables. We have a string name, right? So it's an object which is created. Then we have an integer count, something else in memory, little count. We also have double subtotal, D for double, like double subtotals, somewhat larger than integer, of course, in memory. And we also have another string for city name, somewhere here. I'm just trying to show these, 3D boxes that represent something that I really am trying to manipulate in memory and create in memory and trying to use them, those particular variables. So just string, integer, double, and another string. I really do create them. The program works fine. It doesn't produce the expected results, but it does compile and run and has no problem creating those 4. Then I also have a scanner, right? I have the scanner named SC. And this scanner somehow watches input from the keyboard. On the keyboard, so somewhere here there is my keyboard, right? So I use my keyboard, something like that. Looks like a lot of squares for all the keys, and that's my keyboard, right? So it's connected to my computer. Inside my computer, somewhere here, apparently, I'm just guessing, but there needs to be some sort of like a memory buffer, like a sequence of bytes, or in case of Java, I will, picture each individual character as 2 bytes in memory. But, there's a buffer in memory which essentially reserved for keyboard input. Apparently, the scanner really knows everything about it. So I may pretend that this is happening inside my scanner. But at the same time, remember that we constructed the scanner right here with system input stream device. So perhaps a true thing to say is that this input stream contains this buffer with the user input from the keyboard, and the scanner on the other side is trying to actually access this buffer and tries to parse the input for me, so that as a result it generates appropriate tokens which are suitable for my inputs. And I'm trying to work with really expected inputs. So first time, it says enter name, and I type, A, B, and C. And then I hit enter key. The enter key is, one of the keys here on my keyboard. It's a real key right here. It is real. There's no doubt about it. So it actually generates something like maybe like a new line character. So this is like \n character here. One of the characters that is really gets stored in this buffer. So what happens here is that when I say scanner next, so so over here I'm trying to get this portion from what was entered by the user into this string, right? Store it as initialize it with my string, and I'm using next, N-E-X-T method to generate input. What happens is that by design, this next method, which is available on my scanner, is going to take these characters A, B, and C, or anything that I type, and it's going to populate this string named name in my program with these characters until it sees a white space. So this white space becomes a stop sign for the next method. So believe it or not, when the scanner, let me kind of go to eraser and erase this little arrow, right? So get rid of it. After next is finished, and it had a chance to give me a name, the scanner keeps tracks of the position inside this buffer. So the next position is this new line character generated by me hitting the enter key. Then I am typing, as you know, I am typing on the keyboard. I'm typing something like 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. And those are stored in my buffer as individual characters. Then I hit enter again, which is another new line. Okay. Then I call nextInt, which basically is a signal to the scanner to say that I'm looking for an integer, and I'm expecting it to be now ready in the keyboard buffer. Right? So next nextInt. Okay, so that's my next attempt to get input. Interestingly, the scanner sees this new line character, which is technically a white space character, and by design, nextInt completely ignores it. Essentially, it gets processed but never returned to me in any shape or form. I go straight to other characters, which is like sequence of digits 1 to 3. The scanner is smart enough to understand that I'm not looking at the character string 1 to 3. Rather, I want an integer 123. So it just gives to, parses it, creates an integer value, and stores it in my integer name count. So the new line remains in the buffer. Let me now erase this arrow indicating where the position of the scanner was before. And so now the new position is, of course, pointing to this new line. My next attempt is to get a double value from the user. The user is good enough to type something like 0.1. Those are 3 characters that are being typed by the user, right? 1, 2, and 3. Like there's a little dot in between indicating the floating point. 0.1. So when I say nextDouble, right here, I'll just abbreviate it to ND, right? ND, nextDouble. This is the method that I'm using on my, scanner to generate nextDouble value, name subtotal. What happens here is very similar. It finds something that matches the double format. It converts it to a real double number and stores it in my double variable. And of course, I type the new line at the end of 0.1, and the scanner goes to that. And so now the scanner points to yet another new line. Guess what? This new line that was typed after 1, 2, 3 it still gets processed by the scanner, but it completely ignores it and never gives it to me. Because my requests so far were to say, hey, give me a number, give me double, give me an integer number, give me some text. Let me expand on this drawing a little bit. And finally, I say, now I want to read the entire line of text from the keyboard. The idea is this: I don't want to get a single word, because some of the city names could be multiple words, could be 2 or even 3 words, like New York, right? 2 words with a space in between. So this is my attempt, and what happens then is the following. There is a method named nextLine, which, if you read the documentation, will tell you, okay, we'll definitely give you the next line. But guess what the rules are? You will type your line on the keyboard, and we will process it for you, and we'll give it to you. But we will also process the new line, which before used to be the uh, essentially the stop sign to get tokens such as integers and doubles and single words from the keyboard. This time we will process it as the end of line. And guess what happens? I call nextLine, and as a result, what happens is that it goes and sees the new line and says, okay, that's it, I have a line for you. It's an empty line, and it just populates my string named city name with an empty line, like, quote unquote, like empty line with no characters, length is 0, and it happily discards this new line character. And then it says, okay, I'm ready for next operation. So this is what Scanner does. And this is why the outcome of this program is so confusing, that it's essentially comes back with empty line and exits without ever going to get the next line for us. So how do I make it happen?